know, I have business model marriage, and you guys love the content. We love it. And James is somebody who works very closely with my wife, Catherine, and I. And James and I do so much work with identity, which is a big problem with marriage. And also, the reason we started this project, The Human Bleed, was because we recognized that when we start to actually focus on the individuals that are going through struggles in their personal life, we can see the benefits. Obviously, we can help save a marriage. That's what we do. But we can change people's lives. We can transform them. And one of those places that their lives can change is at work. Right, James?
That's right. That's right. At work, at home, and everywhere in between. And one of the things that we've understood is that individually, I mean, we're helping a lot of people, and then collectively, a lot of people are also now helping a lot of people. But like we always say, Cass, where are most people all the time in their life? They're either in their home or at their job. And so we want to actually approach an opportunity. We have the opportunity and been given the opportunity and now have embraced that opportunity to go into the workplaces, go into the organizations, into the companies, and actually build a cohesive strategy and more importantly, an architecture that gives the help that we provide one-on-one with people right there at the work from the organic level. So that means from the top down to the bottom up. There's no stigma. It's not about programs. It's really about the process of looking inward and becoming the person that you truly are, and then living that without fear, without stress, without anxiety. And that's fruitful, man. That's a legacy being built right before our eyes. So that's what we do every single day.
That's correct. And one of the recent surveys that we took, 26% of the employees were dealing with betrayal. And so we're going to talk about that today. Betrayal is not just cheating. Okay. And the greater amount of people were dealing with some form of trust, which is stemming from a betrayal. Okay. So we're going to talk about our take on what we teach when it comes to, obviously you need to get over that in your relationship. I mean, you're bringing that load into the office. You're bringing that load, that burden down, whether it's you who is the betrayer, let's say, okay, or if it's you, the victim. This is affecting us with our children. This is affecting us day to day. Ever talk to somebody and you feel like they're just distant, right? And you end up getting deeper. You ask the right questions and you find out that there's a big trust issue, at home because of some issues when it comes to betrayal. And we're seeing this at the workplace here. Right. So, James, when I say, what is betrayal to you? Can you give me your take, please?
Yeah, it's funny. I was going to ask that same question. I mean, betrayal is when, so for example, if I'm sitting in this chair, this is a Herman Miller Aeron chair. I've had it for like 20 years. All right. It's a very trustworthy chair. I expect that it's going to hold me. I expect that the armrests are going to sit up. It's going to rock. And if I sit in this thing and the bottom falls off and I bump my head, that chair has betrayed me. It has not functioned in what it was intended to be. And more importantly, what it was created to be and what it promised me. Now that's silly to use a chair for that analogy. But the same thing is true in a relationship, whether it's a job, whether it's a marriage, whether it's a friendship or a parent-child. When someone actually betrays somebody else, they actually show up and they act or they do or in a way that breaks the structure of the relationship, that causes fear, that destroys trust, that erodes intimacy, that breaks connection, whatever that might be. And sometimes it's perceived and sometimes it's intentional and sometimes it's just accidental because it happens. And so we come from that point. So for me, the basic definition of betrayal is to do something that causes harm to the connection, harm to the relationship, and acting in a way that's incongruent with promises that have been made in the relationship, specifically when we talk about marriage. To have and to hold, what have you, I'm going to be here, I'm going to show up. And it's not just affairs. It's a lot of different things. And I think that's what you're getting at too today.
Yeah, I have very firm beliefs. I mean, first of all, if you see some of my posts, some of the stuff that goes mega viral is starting always with a hook that says, you don't have to fuck someone to cheat.
Right.
Okay. And I think that we almost always think of betrayal as an affair. And until you go through some of these other things, if you're finding out your spouse is using porn behind your back, if they're going through Instagram, even looking at pictures, if they're DMing these people or texting or obviously going on dating sites, we start to see that it goes a lot deeper. And I always like to say it like this: the most unaware person who's cheating, because we all know the rules of marriage.
Right.
I think that the first side of betrayal is understanding that they're betraying themselves because they are going out elsewhere to try to validate themselves, to try to feel good enough. In other words, they don't feel like they're getting what they need for their partner. Yeah. And so they seek it elsewhere. In one of the songs I wrote, actually, I think it's called "You Don't Have to Fuck Someone to Cheat." I haven't released it yet, but I say, stop looking for your value in another woman's eyes, especially your wife.
Yes.
You know? And the reason why I think this is so important is because betrayal is twofold. We think of it like it's the person who's doing the wrong, but that person actually needs to go deeper and look within. They're betraying themselves, their core values, not just their partner.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, that's right. And it's a nuanced thing that Cass and I are talking about right now. Self-betrayal, self-erasure. And I know, and Cass knows me. He's walked with me a little better part of 2 years now, and he knows my story, he knows my journey, he knows a lot about how I think and how I operate, and he can tell when I'm not walking authentically. And so if I'm not walking authentically in my choices or my behavior or my intentions, he'll say, dude, are you being authentic? Are you being you? Because it is my biggest, I don't have a fear. And when I do have fears, those fears fuel me to walk in a manner worthy of who I am. But if I were to say I had one real fear, is that I would not walk authentically, that I would not operate authentically, that I would not be myself, but bend unconsciously to some other person's desire or some other person's expectation and just become another costume, become another, actor in a play that I didn't even know I was on stage performing. Mm-hmm. And so when it comes to this betrayal, self-betrayal, it's probably the most invisible and most subtle reality that most people live under. And so when we see betrayal in relationships, when we see adultery or we see infidelity, whether it be financial or emotional or physical or what have you, it always starts from self-betrayal. And that's what we're getting at right now. And so we look at why do we need, we talked about this last week on one of our Sex is Not a Weapon episodes. And that's exactly what happens sometimes. We get to the place where we use intimacy, we use connection, we use sex, we use whatever it is to validate our value and our worth. And then we take that into every aspect of our lives.
100%. I mean, let's just think about this for a second. Let's say you understand our take on betrayal being more than just this what we think of affairs, okay, the cheating stuff, okay? And think about it like you just brought up financial betrayal. I mean, we talked to a guy that last week on our talk show. That's, by the way, tonight live. You can call in and talk to Catherine and me. But we talked to a man who was trying to figure out how to get his wife to trust him again, and he's so concerned because he didn't want to tell her, how far in debt they've become. Right? That's betrayal. But I want people to understand the betrayal is deeper. It's within that man.
That's right.
It's the fear that he has of hurting his wife is real. I get that. You got to man up. You got to suck it up. You got to take care of it. Okay. By the way, this is why he's suffering in the workplace and why his employer's not making as much money. He's thinking about the debt all the time. Yeah. But this man, he's betraying himself. It's not even about betraying his wife. Like, if you think about it, not being able to be strong enough to say, I fucked up, yes, you're not going to get anywhere in your life. Right. This is a massive problem. And you can go deeper with this thought process. I mean, how many men say they want to be respected?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, we hear that 50 times a week, right? And it's actually everybody.
It's everybody.
And I always follow that with that question with, when's the last time you were disrespectful?
Right.
That's betraying yourself. You can't say I want something and not deliver it, do unto others. Right. The shit that this society has gotten us to, where we have this entitlement to what we deserve and we don't stand in our own man or woman as the person that we are. Right. And then we take that and we go somewhere else. I have another reel that goes super viral, a song coming out for us is he's nicer to everyone else than he is to me. I mean, come on. What kind of betrayal is that to your relationship? Never mind yourself. You even know how to act? By the way, that post is written about myself. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I would treat everyone with respect, be professional, all this shit. And I'd walk through the door and be an asshole to Kat,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So sometimes we don't even realize how it's not actually affecting us at work. But it is, because you're treating your wife like shit. You had a bad day.
That's right.
That's
right. Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I mean, we've all heard that before, right? We've all had, you've always got time for so-and-so. You've always got time for that. You treat these people better than, you're always available. And typically, especially in the sense of like this kind of work that we do, it's very easy to just feel like, okay, the phone ringing, let me just answer it. I know it's 9:30 at night. Oh, well, you know what? It's Sunday afternoon. Let me just get on this call for a quick. Oh, you know what? So-and-so called, they need me. And all the while, what we're doing is we take for granted the relationships at home. And then we go out and we self-validate, or we get validation from the being needed over here. That's self-betrayal, because we're not satisfied, and we're not, what's the word? I hate to use the word anchored because it has such a broad meaning, but we're really not anchored into the root of who we are. So we need to be needed. We need to be wanted. We need to, and that carries over in the bedroom. It carries over at work. It carries over in the community. There's nothing greater. Hey, would you like to volunteer for us? I mean, I can't tell you at one season of my life how many volunteer positions I carried. It's like, it's only 2 hours a month, but by the time it was all said and done, it was a full work week. By the time you got it all finished. And because what it does is it feeds you when you really should be self-satisfied. You should really be self-satisfied. And so you go to work and you're amazing with the leadership, you're amazing with the employees, you're amazing with the staff, you're considerate, you're compassionate. Why? Because their need for your knowledge, your presence, or your position is so intoxicating. And you go home and you want to be needed in the same way. But the need that the person has at home is for you to sit and listen and hold space for their needs as well. Because see, in the workplace, it's not reciprocity intimately like it is at home. It's not love the way it's supposed to be at home, which is putting another person's needs as a priority in your life as equal to your own.
And eventually the betrayal starts to wear you down. I was coaching a man the other day who was asking, he used to be able to compartmentalize everything at work and then go home, had its problems, but like he wasn't suffering at work. Eventually, you can't take it. See, this self-betrayal, when you think about the spiral of your relationship and it going out of control, where we have the attack-defense cycle, where we're focused on our own needs, the other person wants to be heard, you want to be heard. And what happens is, eventually you are living in a fog. I mean, that's why we see 5 weeks of people being at work but not actually being present in studies when they're going through a divorce.
Right.
That's why we see 70% of people going to work and arriving with some level of intoxication based off of sleep deprivation, or let's get real, with alcohol substance abuse, etc.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Because eventually the workplace can't survive you, because you constantly, those were, by the way, different forms of betrayal. I'm going to cope and start drinking, let's say. I'm not going to do the work to deal with this anxiety, what's keeping me up all night with my sleep deprivation. We don't focus on that. And then ultimately we betray the relationship as we attack and try to fulfill our own needs and blame our partner because we don't get what we want. And then this is what leads to the real betrayal that everybody calls real when we start looking at affairs.
Right.
When statistically we know that I'm just going to summarize this quickly, that it's roughly 80% of people are not cheating. Yet we have somebody on here talking, her name is Sharisa, talking about her husband not even allow her to go to a male masseuse, right? And says she's just insecure when she brings up questions. See, this is the problem. The self-betrayal leads you down this path where eventually insecurity grips you. Now you're fucked, because now you're not focused at all at work. Now you're not focused at all and present in conversations with people, because you inherently need to be loved.
Right.
Right. And then this is maybe why he's pushing his insecurity back on her.
Right.
And blaming her. You see? Yeah. It makes no sense that you guys think about the affair and not the shit that happens prior with betrayal.
Right.
That's why we can't solve a problem with Sharisa. Well, she's not our client. We could definitely. But why we don't get there, Sharisa, is because when we don't address the issues, we're still focused on the symptoms. We never solve a problem.
That's right. That's right. And that brings us back to the reality of what we say a lot, is that we end up putting Band-Aids on things. We focus on the symptoms so much that we never really get to the root. And so then the cycle continues. It's the same behavior, it's the same stuff, but it's just got different clothes on. It's just got a different wardrobe. It's got a different color, different flavor, different smell. It's the same stuff. And people then, one relationship doesn't work, another relationship doesn't work, another, and it's always somebody else. But without actually getting to the center. Here's some tells. If you have insecurities, if you have fantasy in your mind about what might be, or fears in your mind about what might be, that is a tell that there's an insecurity there. And that insecurity is at the root an issue of who you are and how you see yourself. Because while pain is inevitable, suffering is not. And so when we come to the place of relationships, when you see when you see yourself really becoming paranoid, insecure, overbearing, and we've got clients, Cass, that have come and said in our programs that, wow, I put a tracker in my wife's car, now she wants a divorce. Of course she wants a divorce. That's stalking. Well, I just felt like she was cheating on me. This is the problem. You are not able to stand on your own, and so you write a story about what possibly is happening. You project that story onto your spouse, and you create the energy and the intensity and the insecurity in the relationship without ever even speaking it into the air. And then what happens is you end up ignoring everything but the current symptom. And you want to fix the issue to such at any cost, which includes betraying yourself, becoming someone you're not, acting in a way that's not congruent with truth. And insecurity is not authenticity, ever.
No, and I'll tell you something. Like, let's just stick with betrayal as what most people think for a moment, okay? With it being the affair,
Right.
okay? Or the things like the DMing, the texting and stuff leading up to the affair. Here's the thing. Before that actually happens, we perpetuate it.
Yes.
In other words, here's a real-time coaching call. So a man was paranoid and terrified his wife was having sex with somebody at CrossFit. Okay? Not too long later, he finds out that she is. Now, what I mean by not too long later is I asked how much time went by from when you started it to feel it in your brain, and that you kept on asking, pushing. Are you sleeping with somebody? Who are you talking to? Why are you wearing those pair of underwear? And these kinds of things. Okay. Now, he created that because in the beginning, she was just going to work out, man.
Right.
Right. But you became so unsafe. Now, here's the thing, though. You're not off the hook if you're the victim.
Yeah.
Because you could have easily used insecurity to bridge the gap and connect you. That's a lesson I teach when I coach, man, in my program. If you can understand that the way you love someone that's insecure is not by ignoring what they feel. It's not their baggage they need to let go of. If you understood that this person, let's just use one example, dad abandoned him.
Yeah.
You would have felt bad for that child who lost his father, but now you don't feel bad for the man who grew up this way. It's just his baggage to deal with.
Yeah.
No. You signed up for it. He masked it prior.
Yes, that's right.
And you enabled it as it went on. And so I'm not justifying somebody who does have the affair, but see, you're betraying yourself if you're not loving your partner. You're betraying your marriage and disrespecting your vows if you're not loving your partner. And I know this firsthand because nobody trashed their wife more than I did. Flipping her out of beds and shit, breaking a couch. She loves telling this story because it really, really reminds people of how bad it was. But she came late into the gym when we owned it, about 7 minutes late, and walked in a guy right behind her. And that night, and all day long, actually, I sent text messages, but that night, I fucking lectured her and screamed at her about the rules of marriage and trying to find proof that she fucked that guy on the street before she came into the gym. Meaning, how productive could I be at work? How productive could I be to solve my own problem with my own security? Sure. But you know how we got through insecurity? Catherine loved me.
Yeah.
She loved me like a wife should love me.
Right.
So, teaching me things like, just say something, I love you, but I feel insecure. So I could soften her and let her know that I was ready to blow, and she could just start to be there for me. Now, that was not her responsibility, but you guys all followed us for what we have. Now we're figuring out we can take this to the workplace and make your employees more valuable, bring them home because they're more valuable at home, and bring them back to the work deck. It's a beautiful cycle.
That's right.
right?
That's right. There's a term that we use that goes along with the self-betrayal, and it's called self-erasure. And the erasure is when you feel like you don't have a voice. You've lost your place. You've lost yourself, and it creates an emptiness. And in my mind, and in the experience with the people that I've worked with over the last few years, I recognize sort of a sequence of how that works. And we might talk about that, we might not. But that erasure, that betrayal, that one-time act of betrayal, where you begin to act outside of truth, you begin to actually acquiesce or back down, then it becomes this erasure mindset. It creates an emptiness, a void, so that when you go to work, when you get into the public market, when you go to the gym, when you start experiencing people, and then you're completely empty, they speak into your life in certain ways, and they begin to write the persona. They begin to dress you in the costume. They begin to establish the patterns. They begin to start building a belief system that you're not aware of it. So you're literally, it's like somebody puts a USB thing in your neck and programs you. And then you begin to act without even your knowledge to chase after that validation, to chase after, because what does it do? You're insecure, you're empty at home, you go out into the world and you begin to get filled up. And it is betrayal, because you're not showing up for yourself, and you're not showing. So you're all good here, and then you come home and you're empty. That's betrayal. That's betrayal, because you're not. Now, I'm not talking about capacity. I'm not talking about I can't do much more. I can't hold much more. Capacity, hey, Cass, man, I'm tired, brother. I mean, how many times have we like, dude, we got some stuff. You didn't even have power on Tuesday because you had some construction work going on, Stuff happens. You didn't have the capacity to live stream, so we didn't live stream yesterday, unless you wanted to go out and try to find a signal out in the woods out there in that beautiful place where you live. But, it's not about capacity. But even when you don't have capacity to carry and do, I can't do this anymore, you still show up true. You still show up honest. You still show up authentically.
You should.
You should. You should. You can. And that's the point I'm getting at. Because if you don't, you're just walking in a pattern of self-betrayal that you won't notice until the rug gets pulled. But the rug's not going to get pulled. It's been slowly sliding out from under your feet for a long time. And then you fall and you go, well, where's the rug? Well, it's hanging on the wall. It's now a tapestry. And you don't know how it got there.
It's funny that you say that with the rug. That's typically what men think. The rug gets pulled out from you when she's done. There's a number of people, at least a couple, that mentioned they resonated with the comment of him being nicer to everyone else, right? And then coming home, he's a different person. And in the song that I wrote about it, I think it's called "Your Worst." She essentially, you people, you're going to relate to this heavy, because this is what my life was like. He's fun. He's exciting. People love him. He's charismatic. He knows how to be professional. People look at him and look up to him, and but then he comes through the door and he doesn't have the capacity to do that anymore, because he was faking all that shit. And by the way, I'm talking about myself too. Okay, until I understood that I needed to be authentic. I needed to understand that who I was at work, at home, with my children, with strangers. I teach it when I coach. Strangers. I know you do the same thing when you coach, James.
Yes.
Even when you should be able to breathe life into people, and that means everybody.
Right.
And so, but I want to turn it back to you guys, and I'm going to remind you that Catherine, she didn't want to betray herself or anything.
Right.
So instead of coasting or shutting down, instead of becoming, I call it in my program, a vicious type 3, where she became very explosive, instead of all of that shit, she started with trying not to be defensive and learning how with a coach.
Right.
Not a counselor, with a coach.
Right.
Who knew how to do it, and she started to soften me step by step by step, because she knew what I was capable of. You know what your husband is capable of, or your wife is capable of, you guys. You know that they're all this other stress that you're going through, because the human bleed, it stacks. All the different bleeds stack. The tension with the kids and the relationship that he doesn't have with them, and the disconnect that's causing you guys. The coping with the alcohol, the shutting down, the not, ditching our responsibilities. All of these different things that you're going through. He's also not performing the way he could. Professionally, he's not doing as well because of that, because now there's probably financial strain when we start getting there, because you can't maintain it.
No.
If you're inauthentic, you don't have the energy to actually maintain that forever. And I know it because you get the rich guys who come into the coaching program. I talked to one yesterday, and he literally, like, his whole world is upside down now because now he's going to lose.
Yeah.
Right? He can't focus. He's got 2 businesses. He can't fucking focus.
Yeah.
And he can't get his wife back either. He needs help.
That's right.
You see?
That's right. Yeah, it's tough, and what's funny though, Cass, is that I sort of feel like I talked to a guy earlier today, and his wife's done, and I'm going to send him over to Dennis to see if he can't get him into the reset and some things of that nature. But he's like he's just looking for the solution now. Well, what can I do to get her back? Well, I talked to her. And guess what? She's done. But that doesn't mean that his transformation won't provide a new, fresh eyes for her. But here's the thing. Well, just give me a chance. I'm trying to get some help. Don't you see I'm getting some help? But you know what? For 10 years, his wife has been loyal to love him and to guide him. And then she finally said, I've done all I can. And this isn't going to work anymore. And now he's shuffling to get some answers, to get some resolution. But what I've learned with guys like this, and when I talk to this man, he erased himself every single day his entire adult life. He betrayed himself every single day. So the act of betrayal is the first thing. And then what happens in this, for the self-erasure, is every act after that still stands in that place of betrayal. You just, the first adjustment, that's all it takes. It's just that first adjustment, that full self just backing up just a little bit, making concessions, a response. You adjust, and then after a while you realize, wow, that adjustment reduces the friction. That adjustment changes things. And so what Cass is talking about there with Catherine's example is Catherine didn't adjust who she was in the marriage. She stood firm, even when she was reactive or didn't respond correctly. She stood firm in the fact, I'm committed to this man and I'm going to see it through. But at the same time, there's also a part of not adjusting, or a part of not betraying yourself, that you say, hey, I'm gonna stand here for this long. And that's one of the things that we try to coach. This stuff, this adjustment then creates this pattern, and this pattern just begins this. I talked about that story that you write, that internalization. You just start to internalize everything. And then what happens? This is where it gets dangerous, in my opinion, Cass, is when the betrayal just becomes silent. We just sit there. We just sit there and sit there and sit there. And then one day we look into the mirror and there's no reflection looking back at us.
I think that is beautiful. And you know what? It's amazing that you think about it that way, because that's exactly, as you know, why Peace Pillar is the first pillar in the program.
That's right.
Right? Because we're actually focused on the betrayal 9 times out of 10, not even the deeper, the self-betrayal. Right. Catherine didn't save my life, is how I like to put it, by giving in. She did it by being my wife. So there was no self-betrayal. She said, who was I created to be? Right. But we get focused on that. And you got to realize that peace is because it's safety plus trust. You have to be yourself. So I'll often teach a man, right? I'll say, well, she's not safe enough to be unapologetically herself. That's Catherine's line, by the way, right. When she wasn't able to be herself, but decided to do work like you did for yourself, James, where she decided there would be a time frame, but she had to know she was unapologetically herself, meaning the one she was created first. And you know why she never left and that timeline kept getting pushed? It's because although I was not allowing peace in the home, there was no safety, there was no trust, she had all of those for herself.
Yes.
And that was the catalyst that supercharged my growth. And that's why when we go into a company, when we can sit there and start looking at what they're actually going through, it's really easy to identify the different layers, the different masks, the symptoms they're addressing or not fighting over, instead of the issues, right?
That's right.
You can create your own peace. I understand some safety. There might be a different line.
That's right.
Okay? But nothing should ever be compromised for who you are when it comes to trust.
That's right.
Because you can only do what you know is right. And most people, man, you're shutting down, you're coasting, you say I try everything, you scream, you nag, you question, you do all the things. We know it.
Yeah.
Let's get real with ourselves. That's the first part of being unapologetically yourself, is knowing who you want to be. And none of us should ever feel proud when we say something we don't mean,
Right.
but we all do it,
Yep.
right? We even do it with our kids,
Yep.
right? None of us should be proud if we don't follow through on something we say, like, I want to be the best person I could ever be. Like, if you're not saying shit like that either, maybe I'm out to lunch, but I think you should be.
Right.
The world's full of shitty people. Why can't you be the best?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. The initial stage of the coaching systems that autonomy and identity and freedom, it starts out with this one specific thing. And this was the catalyst for me, my spark, my impetus, is that there's a coin and every coin has two sides. On one side of the coin was raw honesty. And that raw honesty is about how I feel about me, how I view me. And even if it's wrong, we sometimes try to placate to what we wish was true, and we speak that into our head about when it comes to being honest rather than what is true about how we're speaking and how we're thinking. When I got really honest about how I saw myself, and then I got really honest about how I felt about other people in that particular place, what the other side of that coin became was a real humility, not a feigned humility, not a fond humility, not a fake humility, but a real humility. A humility for me to actually go, wow, I've been performing connection. I've been performing marriage. I've been performing intimacy. I've been performing, progress rather than just living it. And that is an area, we think about the different areas of life. For me, it's relationships and then vocation and then creation, expressive life. I'm big on that. I believe a true free person will always be building and creating something, not just as an entrepreneur, but as an expression of their freedom. And then physical well-being. And so all four of those areas begin to suffer: home, work, life, and then health. And when my health hit it was the catalyst. It was 16 weeks of being infected and hurting and passing out from pain and not knowing what was going on and laying in the bed and laying in the floor and laying in the ditch before I could actually get up and say, wow, something's got to change here. Something's got to change.
See, that kind of vulnerability is transparency. That's a core value of mine, as you know.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you say that, because I was talking to that successful business owner, well, 2 businesses, that was yesterday morning, and the betrayal that he's going through is she doesn't trust changes would ever be real. Her exact words are, I need you to be consistent. I need you to be disciplined. I need you to take responsibility. And something, he didn't tell me all of this. I just started to say that. He said, she just told me that again.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I know. I'm really good at what I fucking do.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. When you start to understand that, that's massive betrayal that people don't think of as betrayal. When you say you're going to do something, you need to be transparent. You need to be real and raw when you don't do it. Yeah. You need to get ahead of it. Any form of betrayal, you need to get ahead of it. So if we use the obvious when we think about cheating as betrayal, I remember this guy, he lives, I don't want to say where he lived, but he was around me, okay? And the thing is, man, like, he needed so much validation, the affairs that he said he didn't have. And I was like, dude, if you have to get in a car and say, I've got to drive with a woman to get to this meeting, why can't you just say that and follow it with, I love you? Start with, I love you.
Right.
End it with, I love you. You're the only one for me, baby.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep you posted. As soon as I have to take a pee, I'm going to send you a message. I don't care if it's annoying, man.
Right.
See, if you could be transparent and you could be real and raw, and on the other side, if you could say what you need, and if you don't get it, just understand that's where you are. You can stop letting this run your mind in so many different directions, blaming them for not giving you what you need. Because no matter what, actually a friend of mine taught me this in the thick of me being abusive, terrified Catherine was going to cheat. He said to me, I never really got the lesson until I was older and doing my work. But he said to me, if she's going to cheat, she's going to cheat. There's nothing you can do. So why don't you just live your life like she's not cheating?
There you go.
Right?
Rather than
if she's going to disrespect, if they're going to be mean, if they're nice to everyone else, if they are betraying themselves, why can't you be transparent with yourself, hold yourself accountable, and follow through on everything you say, or else you don't have a leg to stand on. And you get the victims who've been cheated on all the time. By the way, I'm one of them. Okay, every girl, Catherine's the only one I think that didn't, but like in reality, we become victims instead of realizing who are we. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. And victim is not an identity. It's an excuse.
Yes.
A victim is an excuse. Now, yes, there are victims. We call them, but that's an adjective describing an experience. You've been victimized. You don't have to take on the identity. And you don't even have to say, I'm a victor. No, this happened to me. That's the end of it. I didn't survive it. I didn't come. No, I am bigger than what happened to me. Because as long as it is a tether or a launching pad or a ladder that you've climbed on, you stood on top of the ashes. I mean, I love these metaphors. I mean, they're beautiful in my own life. But my identity is not in what happened to me. It just happened to me. You know what? Who I am today, well, when I'm victimized in the future, will be who I am then. And I'll show up differently than I did in the past. And this is the thing that, when we think about self-betrayal, here's something. You can't betray what you don't know is true. And until you know what is true, you're already betraying it. But you just don't know it. Now that sounds oxymoronic, but it's absolutely true.
So true. Like if you think about the world-renowned Gottmans and the few others that put together the Cascade of Betrayal, we went way deeper. Because we believe betrayal is more than affairs physically, which is their last thing. We think divorce is betrayal. We think separation is betrayal. All the other things we're talking about, not just affairs. Right. Okay? And ours is called the tailspin of betrayal because it's actually much more current for today's times and the people that we're dealing with in modern times. But if we think about that, you get the victims always talking about how, there's somebody did this on my post the other day that's going viral right now. It's like, but there's never an excuse for an affair. Yeah, but there's never an excuse for any of the other things. Like the first time they said good morning and you said, I'm not a morning person. That's just a stupid example, but it's a very real example. There's not an excuse for anything on the tailspin of betrayal ever. And by the way, if you want it, just DM me and just ask, just take tailspin, and I haven't set anything up to automatically send that, but I'll make sure I get it to you. Like it's wild how betrayal is so widely underrated because it's so widely focused on one topic.
Right.
And that's why we're not getting anywhere. That's why we're seeing people suffer. When we go to a company and we look at the amount of people having an affair, it's never high. But when you look at a company, when it's betrayal with all these other ways and aspects that we're looking at,
right?
It's everybody in the company.
Yeah, I say it's even the single people.
Even the single people.
I mean, it's not just relationship issues are just the symptoms of a deeper issue, and that's the thing that a lot of folks can't see. And I just think that it's important to think about. In the job. And for those of you who are managers or owners or, executives, you're thinking, well, what is it that you would help me with? Well, you got to understand that a lot of times one or two things will happen with people who are in self-betrayal or either don't have a good root on who they really are. They'll hyper-perform, which is good for you. But eventually what we call as, quote, burnout or crisis will happen, and the replacement cost of that or the falling away of that person and their productivity will be a nick to the bottom line. Or the person will never really, ever really show up. And it'll be that problem guy, the guy that you don't want to get rid of, but will you just get his crap together? Could you just not let this affect your work, Bob? And those are the case studies that we see over and over again. But here's the thing that we don't realize about these two types of outcomes. They're still taking away the same from the bottom line because neither of them are producing effectively. And the energy that they bring, hyperproductivity or lack of productivity, is always going to affect the nature and the culture of the organization. And it's bringing everybody down. Why? Because we all share the same experiences as human beings. And whether we explicitly say it or not, under the surface, that builds a culture of suffocation, of drowning.
Yes.
Even at the greatest of, this is an awesome place to work, yay. But at the desk and in the cubicle or out on the field or in the car or driving around, there's always something going on in the narration that's affecting the productivity, and you'll never see it on your P&L. You'll never see it on your profits and loss because you've never seen it in your profits before.
That's right. It's crazy because this all started with, I'll use a home example. This all started with home and now we take it over to business. It's crazy. But the exact same thing is happening in your home. I mean, I had a woman DMing me talking. I mean, it was a novel. It was a freaking novel. You guys, please don't send a novel. It's hard to help everyone if it's a novel, but the thing is she's messaging and talking all about how her husband doesn't do much around the home. And this man's not even working. Okay. So we start looking at this and, the one line that proves this, the betrayal and everything we're discussing today, I just sent a simple voice note back. And I said, yeah, but when you do divorce him, are you not going to have to do everything in your own home anyway, including taking care of the kids?
That's right.
I haven't heard a response back, but it's always the same.
Yeah.
Right? Yes, but we're not divorced yet. He needs to blah, blah, blah. Listen, you can't do anything about it, but you need to take care of your home and your kids. Be responsible. It is what it is. You might hit that finite time, right? So we start to see the drain. The bottom line in your home starts to drop, meaning the floor starts to drop. We're getting more contemptuous, more angry. We blame more often. You can't help it. But this is when it starts to happen, where you start to betray yourself even further. When you snap at your kids, my wife feels terrible when she yells. She got a long fuse, man. But when that fuse burns up, boy, right. I got to step in, right?
Exactly.
And that's right. And sometimes, I'm around enough so that I can see it, where it's like, well, don't you talk to my wife like that, right? Well, this happens everywhere, guys.
Yeah.
You do it to your friends. You do it to, when we were going through our shit, I actually would try to help Catherine, but I'd be like, boy, you're pretty mean to your friend Caitlin. That was pretty sharp, right?
Yeah.
I was not in a position where I could hold her accountable for anything back then, but we do this with our coworkers.
Yeah.
That expression we always talk about with, you used the example of your chair earlier, but we're thankful our car works never until it doesn't work and we're mad at our car.
That's exactly
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if we start to think about it, this is exactly the same why. How many times do you go into a store and say it's the best day of your life when you talk to a stranger? Hey, Rick, thanks for your help today. I hope you have the best day of your life.
Right. Yeah, you do.
Right. I do, but people don't. But you'll complain about your shitty service.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
How many times you leave a positive review? I leave one everywhere. I got to leave one today because somebody fixed the exhaust on my Chevelle.
Yeah. Yeah. I try
super fast. Fit me in.
Yeah. I try to always leave positive and always do the in-call survey. I hate them, but I always do them because they're important and it's part of who I am. I don't want to be the. I love to complain though. You know what's cool? You and I even say this sometimes, man. We get on the phone sometimes. We just complain. But it's fun because we're posturing and almost in a playful sense of the performance that we used to in the years past before we changed. It's so natural. And it's almost like a comedy show. We're witnessing ourselves. But at the end of it, let's just let's just get back to work because it's not who we are. And sometimes we complain so much. And I believe that that's everybody. I don't believe there's anybody with an innate spirit of complaint. I don't believe there's any person in the world that's just a sourpuss. I think that's a bunch of hogwash, a bunch of BS, or whatever you want to call it. It's stupid. But what it is that we are so bent, we're so erased, we're so unfocused on who we are that we have no experience. I love the idea about the car. My Tahoe, I'm just going to have to put another, I don't even know how many thousands in this thing. Now I could have bought me a good used one, but now the electrical system's going out. I got no brake lights, got no headlights, and I'm irritated by it, but at the same time, it's okay. But are we thankful when it does? I am. When I get into my car, sometimes she sounds so good. Listen to that thing run. Oh my gosh, that feels so good when he got the suspension fixed. I'm so thankful for it. But it's not something that we do culturally, instinctively, because we've been trained to complain.
Well, because everybody's so fucking entitled. I mean, look at it. No matter, I lived all across Canada before I moved to Texas, and no matter where I have been in the last 5-10 years, nobody's even waving hardly to say thank you when the car lets you pass, even the parking lot, because we're so entitled. Yes, you have the right of way, but why the fuck aren't you grateful? This is why we have betrayal in our marriage, because we're not who we're supposed to be culturally anymore. It's socially acceptable. No, that car should stop.
Yeah.
That car shouldn't just stop. And this is where we come up with this gratitude lessons. Like Catherine will say, you should thank your husband for providing. And I say, you should thank your wife for having sex with you. Doesn't matter like how hard they work, how hard they didn't work. What do you want them to do? Provide? Then say thank you. It doesn't matter if she was fully into it, or if she was doing it intentionally, or if she was just being a good wife, or if she was checking off the fucking to-do list because you're still taking that stupid sex. You're not a good person if you don't say thank you.
Right.
Like, come on, you're not entitled to anything just because you're married, or just because you're a fucking human being. That's the problem. And that's why we do things like the surveys, and I let the manager know, every time I talk to someone, like, can I have an email? You were outstanding today. Can I have an email for your boss?
Right.
So I can let them know?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you know how culturally unacceptable that's become now?
Yeah.
They don't want to be bothered. You can't even find one anymore. Most time it's like, oh, you can't,
Yeah. No.
Just fill out the survey, or there is no survey, but thank you.
There's another,
right?
There's another E that goes along with the entitled, and that's the expectation. I find that most people get exactly what they expect. And so,
which is why you create the fear.
Yes. And I go into a restaurant, I go into a business, I go into the community, I come into my home, and my expectation is high. But it's high based on the joy, the focus, the gratitude, everything. If you go into a restaurant and you, man, I can't wait. I mean, this is a mindset you need to have. I can't wait to see who's going to wait on me. I bet they're going to be an incredible person, a unique person. Get curious about who these people are, not because you want good service, because you expect good service. You know what? Sometimes people are just having bad days, but even then you're getting good service. Did you eat? Was the food right? Did they check on you? I mean, I've had bad service. I've had a really terrible waiter before. I've had a really terrible experience at a business before. But if you go in with the expectation that it's going to be amazing, you know what you'll see in the midst of maybe a 30-minute visit? You'll see the 1 or 2 seconds of real amazing things. And you'll be grateful for those. But if you go in there with this attitude, I bet it's going to be shit. You're right. You're right.
I want to go with that example for a second, teach a little lesson, and then we can tie this back to betrayal. So if you can imagine, Catherine and I, what we go above and beyond if there is a problem with the service or the food, to make sure we let the person who served us know. And then we'll go to the manager, okay, and we'll let them know. Well, we're not complaining. We're very, very clear. I just want you to let you know it's just a little off today, but we want you to be aware. Why? Because if we know the kind of people we want to be, and we want that business to do well, businesses are fucking dying out there. Right? And we want them to do well. We want them to appreciate us the next time they serve us, not just us, but the people we live around. Right? Not entitled. Then we can't help but do the right thing. And see, why this is a problem is we can't even do that at home anymore. The moment we find, we can, and we can show you how, but the moment you walk in your home with this sense of entitlement, you don't get what you want. It's exactly what you were talking about a minute ago, James. You immediately create the life that you don't want. And that's why we decide unknowingly, subconsciously, to just betray ourselves. That's why we snap at our kids. Forget your spouse for a second. When you accidentally just, unleash. I think we've all been there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Nicole agrees. I'm wholeheartedly a person who believes that positive praises are far more important than negative feedback. I'll go out of my way to hunt down management to compliment our service. I love that. But just think about it. See, most of us, that's why I like this restaurant example. See, most of us, Nicole, will not learn how to be productive when trying to create what we want. Meaning, like I said, the example was, I want to make sure that when I come back, and also the people around me are happy. So I'm going to help them be better. Right? It's the way you would communicate it. And this is especially important if you're at work most of the day. If you work, you're at work awake more than you are awake at home typically. Okay. And so it's especially important there because we know what that stress can do, bringing it home. And it's the most important. The foundation is who you are in the hardest relationship of your life
Yes.
with your spouse and your kids.
That's right.
It's why we have to learn how to do this. It's why when we work with business owners, they get to write it off because it's all leadership, teamwork, rapport,
That's right.
communication. I can go on,
That's right.
right? It's the relationship skills that make people valuable because relationships are value or they're not valued.
Right. That's right.
You're either valuable or you're not.
And it goes beyond
Right.
the skills. It goes beyond the tools. I used this example with a guy earlier today. I said, I can give you a hammer and teach you how to swing it. I can buy you a really nice East Wing hammer for, $100. It doesn't make you a finished carpenter. It doesn't make you a master builder. And no
That's
matter
right.
how, I got skills. I restored this Century home. It took me 10 months of my life to redo the inside of this home by myself with some help. I had some help, but all by and large, it was me. But it's not up to par. I couldn't charge you $300 an hour for the work that I did here. I could just help you with it. You say it's just good. You're building a studio, right? You've got that studio.
Yeah, here, full transparency, right? Look at the drywall shit going on here.
Yeah, let's
Like,
don't show that to my brother who's a finished carpenter. But guess what? James and Cass aren't claiming to be master builders. We get the job done. All right. So having the tool doesn't make you masterful at it. What does the finished carpenter and James have in common? That we have the same tool. But what's the difference? When a finished carpenter picks up the wood, he embodies the mastery behind knowing what to do with it. He embodies the mastery. So the tools are just one part of the equation. When you become the person who can use the tools truthfully, because it's who you are, it's so much different than just
that's
having
why
a tool.
that's why we have so much success moving relationships, marriages forward out of the depths of hell, so to speak. Though everybody's story they think is the worst, like you brought up, I say all the time, last time we filmed. But like the reason why we're so successful at it is because we understand how you must not just learn something. I mean, we were just talking to a couple last night, Catherine and me, where, Catherine was, and I was talking to Catherine about them after, he needs to learn to implement more.
Yeah.
Okay. She's feels like she's tried everything and she has done a lot. She's invested a lot. It's a lot to think about when she thinks about money or she thinks about time to put into this marriage, but she wants to do it. But they both agreed, Catherine too, even that he needs to implement more. So it's fine. He's got the tools too. He's got the courses. He's done the shit, but he's not doing it. And that's one of our specialties is to show you how to embody it. Yeah. And that's a lot to do with I flip a switch with you, or Catherine flips a switch with you, and James teaches you how to make sure you follow through with it, right? And now it's not black and white. And that's why it's so successful when we go to a corporation now, because now we can do a lot of people at once and we build that culture. We bring your beautiful new home culture to all the people around you, and you inspire them. Just like you come to my social media, for example, because you want the hope, right? You're seeing what we transformed our marriage from and into, and you want that same hope. That's what all of our jobs are, because every time a marriage breaks, the tragedy is in our children and the example we're setting for them.
That's right.
We can't victimize ourselves here.
Nope.
Why don't you start pouring some love into your children, meaning what they actually need, right? Bring that to your work. Bring that to the market.
That's right.
When we were talking about last week about one of our favorite things is when we help somebody, one of our clients comes back with a story and they're like, man, I got to ask the question. And we're like, what's that? They're like, what's different about you? And there's all kinds of ways they'll ask it.
That's right.
Well, it's like you got this new energy. Well, it's like you got a glow about you. I don't know. I can't tell, but something's different. We hear all this shit all the time, and it's so powerful.
Yeah.
Man, that was at his workplace, by the way.
Right.
Right?
That's right.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and we do see that. I mean, we literally do see that all the time. And it's powerful. But at the same time, it's not why people change. It's not why people transform. It's just a part of the fruitfulness of that. It's
what happens.
Nice, savory seasoning to an incredible life that actually has great worth. And even before, here's something I want to close with. Even before you see yourself as who you really are and really begin to live as an incredible human being, you already are an incredible human being. You're just not acting like it. And that's the gap we want to close. We want you to be the truth of who you really are, valuable and worthy and powerful, so that you can impact the world to the point where people that don't even know you come up and say, how do you have such joy? I get that. How are you so happy?
Mhm.
How are you doing? Have you seen the news? I had somebody text me yesterday. Have you seen the news? It's a terrible day. It was 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, I don't watch the news. Well, here, look at this. I'm like, okay, well, so what? It doesn't change who I am. And if this blows up and everything blows up and everything burns down, James and Cass will just walk into the fire and see what happens. We'll be like the Terminator. We're going to come out on the other side.
I love it. I love it.
All right.
Well, guys, thanks for watching The Human Bleed today. Stick around. We got so much new content coming out. Yeah, and by the way, Bill, a client of ours, he was just also backing up to Cascade of Betrayal earlier. And he was saying his wife had an affair, but the point is he can see where he played a part, you know?
That's right.
And he's agreeing. He remembers some of that feedback you just mentioned in the program, like 3 weeks